And staying on Darfur, we bring you this interview that we highlight on the happenings in Darfur, Sudan. Now, Ngare, I know you're so familiar with what is happening in Darfur, Sudan. It's been more than a year since the war erupted in April last year. What is the situation on the ground?
Let's first refer to a report that Human Rights Watch recently published that gives an overview of the events that are going on in El Geneina in West Darfur, Sudan. The report that we published earlier this month in May is called "The Masalit Will Not Come Home: Ethnic Cleansing and Crimes Against Humanity in El Geneina." And it documents how conflict broke out in Sudan in April 2023 in West Darfur state. And there has been grave violations of human rights, serious crimes against civilians. The Rapid Support Forces, one of the warring parties, it's an autonomous military force, and its allied predominantly Arab militia, have been carrying out widespread war crimes and crimes against humanity, amounting to a campaign of ethnic cleansing against the Masalit, which is a non-Arab population, mostly in the West Darfur capital of El Geneina. So this report covers this, but it's over a 7-week. It covers a 7-week period between June and August of 2023. But again, events that happened in November 2023. But most disturbingly, we are having an onslaught of attacks currently in El Fasher in West Darfur.
And the situation is so dire. By January this year, 15,000 people had been reported dead. What is the number so far in May?
Yes, the one difficult issue about the conflict in Sudan is the lack of an international organization presence in terms of either the United Nations or even non-governmental organizations that perform humanitarian functions. And so the numbers of those that have been killed are not quite clear. They could be up to about 30,000 that have been killed so far. But certainly we understand that the humanitarian crisis in Sudan is of unprecedented levels. We are now talking about close to 9 million people who've been displaced, and it's the highest number of internally displaced persons in any conflict in the world.
According to your assessment to the ground as a Human Rights Watch, could a genocide be unfolding in Sudan?
One of the elements that we have been looking at, following from our report published earlier this month, is the extent to which the crimes are taking place. So naming them for what they are, we have been able to see war crimes taking place. We have been able to see crimes against humanity. And again, it's not just the Rapid Support Forces that are responsible for these crimes, but also the Sudanese armed forces, the other warring party, at least to the extent that they have prevented or not been able to allow access to corridors where humanitarian assistance could be given, but even just the failure to protect Sudanese people. And that in itself amounts to war crimes. We have been very careful not yet to call it genocide, although there is every indication that the ethnic cleansing is very tantamount and could look like genocide. And the only reason for that is that we have evaluated the evidence, looked at over thousands of photographs and videos and analysis of satellite imagery, and the threshold of the crime of genocide as is defined in international law. We are careful not yet to say it, but we are saying that indeed ethnic cleansing is taking place in Darfur.
Just to cut you short, you're talking about ethnic cleansing. What does this really mean? Can you just elaborate more about the ethnic cleansing claims that you're talking about?
So ethnic cleansing is certainly in international law. We define this as the destruction of an ethnic group where it has been targeted by way of an explicit policy. It's been organized, it's planned, and is to get rid of that ethnic group. What is what is the marked distinction between genocide and ethnic cleansing is the definition of genocide itself, which is a special intent to destroy in part or in whole an ethnic group and various other protected groups in international law. And the special intent is what is the most critical aspect in the distinguishing factor between genocide and other crimes. And so this is why we are calling it ethnic cleansing. It is not to say that we are not going towards a genocide. In fact, this week we have seen a statement from the special advisor to the United Nations Secretary General, Alice Nderito, who specifically referred to the issue in Srebrenica that happened in the former Yugoslavia in the year in 1995 to be very similar and something that we are fearing that El Fasher in West Darfur might look like a Srebrenica in this day and age.
You talked of an inaction among the international community. What are you doing as the right groups, bodies, to ensure that we arrest this situation in Darfur?
So we have been advocating for an international intervention that is coordinated. As you know, that there have been several engagements at the African Union level with the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, and that's from the African perspective. But the United Nations as well has been called upon to make specific interventions. What we are seeing, or what we are not seeing, is a coordinated approach among all these partners. While all of them have had sessions, and we have been calling for special sessions on Sudan at the African Union level, at the Peace and Security Council, but also at the United Nations at the Security Council level, and requesting the A3, the three members of the Security Council, three African state members of the Security Council, to really prioritize the situation in Sudan and call for a protection of civilians mission, as well as dealing with the prevention of atrocities agenda, as well as accountability for the mass violations that are going on in the country. We've seen some progress. Last week, Friday, there was a communique that was issued by the African Union's Peace and Security Council that really was progressive in the sense that it asked the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to investigate the situation in Sudan, but also at the same time asked the special envoy, the new special envoy on preventing atrocities and genocide in Africa, His Excellency Adama Dieng, and the AU high-level panel on Sudan to discuss options for protections of civilians. So this is quite a progressive move we have seen from the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, and we'll be following up on this.
That's good progress indeed. I believe there are crimes against humanity that are happening in Darfur, Sudan. Do you see an event where ICC, the International Criminal Courts, will intervene to ensure the perpetrators are brought to book?
So we must remember that the International Criminal Court has had jurisdiction over Darfur since 2010, when the first arrest warrants were issued by the then ICC prosecutor, Luis Moreno Ocampo, against former President Omar al-Bashir and various other actors who were alleged to have committed the unholy trinity of international crimes: genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And the ICC has not, the jurisdiction remains. And so we are seeking an international criminal court intervention as well in this conflict, especially because we are seeing a similar pattern, a cyclical pattern. And I think the saddest thing about what's happening in Darfur is that 20 years ago, we had an opportunity to actually address it because the parties that were responsible for the conflict back then are similar to those that are responsible for the conflict today. But a lack of accountability back then has then led us to this difficult situation where civilians continue to die in their thousands. So indeed, we are hoping that the International Criminal Court will make an intervention in the Darfur situation.
And we really hope that peace will prevail in Darfur, Sudan. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. That has been Alan Ngari, the Advocacy Director, Africa Human Rights Watch. And that's all we had for you this evening. Thank you for joining.